Thank you for joining us for today's session. We will be getting started in just a moment. Hello, and thank you for joining today's webinar. We are ready to begin. Today's webinar is eligible for one contact hour. Sigma Theta Tau International Honor Society of Nursing is accredited as a provider of nursing continuing professional development by the ANCC Nurses Credentialing Centers Commission on Accreditation. The speakers and planning committee members have disclosed no conflict of interest. To receive contact hours for this CPD session, participants are required to attend the webinar and complete the evaluation form, which will be emailed to all attendees approximately 2 weeks after the webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be available via the Sigma repository within a few business days of recording. Throughout this presentation, our presenters will utilize Mentimeter for interactive polling. In a moment, we will show you the screen to have you log in, and that way you can open a new browser or use your phone to participate in the interactive polling and comment features. In addition to that, at the end of the presentation, we will have time for Q&A, which we will use the GoToWebinar platform, where you can use the questions feature to submit a question to the presenters. We would like to thank our presenters for sharing their expertise with us today. Jillian Russell has experienced a variety of roles in the 12 years she has been a registered nurse. She discovered her passion for the nursing professional development specialty early in her career. Jillian has an MSN from Vanderbilt University and is certified in nursing professional development. She is currently an NPD program manager for the Association for Nursing Professional Development and co-hosts the NPD Forecast podcast with her colleague, Jenn Bodine. Jenn Bodine is a family nurse practitioner who has been engaged in nursing professional development for over 8 years. Jenn has a DNP from Fresno State and is certified in NPD. She is an NPD program manager for the Association for Nursing Professional Development, where she facilitates the Leadership and Evidence-Based Practice Academies. She is also the column editor for the Preceptorship column in the Journal of Nurses in Professional Development. Let's turn it over to our presenters.
Good evening. If everyone could please open your browser to menti.com. We're going to be using Mentimeter this evening, and enter the number that you see on the slide, which is 5174-1930, which will allow you to be interactive with our presentation. So I'm going to give you guys a minute or two to go ahead and log in. All right, I'll give everybody about 20 to 30 more seconds to go ahead and get in, and then we'll get our presentation started. All right, we got one woohoo, so that's good news. All right, we've got some ins. Somebody's in fuego. That's perfect. All right, perfect. Well, this is a good way to start a presentation. Thanks, guys. All right, well, let's get started. Good evening. As you know, I'm Jenn Bodine, and I'm honored to be here to talk to you about nursing professional development and how we can use academic partnerships to ensure optimal outcomes in transitions to practice and numerous other facets within the clinical setting. As our intros indicated, Jillian and I are both project managers for the Association for Nursing and Professional Development, or ANPD. And ANPD's mission is to advance quality healthcare and promote nursing professional development practice. We offer a variety of resources to help our members achieve excellence in professional development. And now I'll hand it over to Jillian.
Thanks so much, Jen. And yes, thank you, Sigma, for having us this evening. This presentation is meant to reinforce that you all belong, your voice belongs in the clinical setting. And nursing professional development is a continuum from the academic setting to the first day as a new grad nurse to the role changes throughout a healthcare professional's career. As nurses navigate their way through the continuum of the ever-changing landscape of healthcare, it's essential that academia and the clinical setting work in partnership in order to ensure consistency and expertise.
All right, before we get started, we would like to know a little bit more about you and where it is that you guys practice. So what is your primary practice environment? Oh, we've got a lot of hospital, acute care, academia. A lot of hospital acute care. They're making the lead. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say that we have for academia about 7.4% of our members make up our academic. And these members are crucial to our endeavors to form collaborative relationships with academia so that we can ensure a cross stream of mutually beneficial competencies regarding preceptorship, mentorship, research, quality improvement, and transition to practice.
And now we want to know, where are you tuning in from? So on your Mentee screen, you should be able to drag and drop a pin. I see one coming in there. It may be hard to, be super precise with where you're dropping your pin, but please put a pin on the map. Let's see where you are tuning in from. All right. So far, I see most everyone I see most everyone in the United States. We have someone in Canada, and my browser won't let me drop, but California. Hey, thank you so much for using the comment feature. That's why we have it there. We have some international representation, which we love to see. And fun fact, including the United States, ANPD has 23 different countries represented in our membership, therefore demonstrating that nursing professional development truly has a global presence, much like Sigma's membership. And there you can see the representation throughout the globe from our membership. And I saw the Maryland shout out come through too.
All right, so next, are you a part of an academic partnership? Yes, no, or you're just not sure. And I'll be honest, there's no shame in that. I did not know I was part of an academic partnership until somebody came to me and told me I was going to be part of that partnership. So we've got some people who just aren't sure. We've got some yeses, a couple of no's. All right, so we have a pretty good mix there. And finally, when you hear the term nursing professional development, what comes to mind? And this is a word cloud, so you guys can just type in whatever comes to mind when you think of nursing professional development.
Success, growth.
The future. Oh, I love that. Leadership, yes. Requirements.
Career growth, competency. Look at this beautiful thing coming to life, Jen. Innovation. Oh, the words are getting smaller.
Well, that's good. That means people are participating, Jill.
Right.
All right. So actually, all of that encompasses nursing professional development. Academia is obviously global, but so is nursing professional development. The reason why this is not as clear as it is with academia is because we go by so many different titles.
And many of these titles are truly organizationally driven. However, the title Nursing Professional Development Practitioner, now that's the identifier that ANPD's NPD scope and standards uses to provide consistency and to indicate the breadth of the roles and responsibilities of our specialty.
And these are what you see in front of you. These are names that people may be referred to around the country, around the world at their facilities.
And I'll say, Jen, in my experience, I've had probably 2 or 3 of those as my specific job title, not necessarily NPD practitioner, but that's truly who I would identify with as NPD.
I was definitely glad when I was able to take hold of the NPD practitioner and kind of just start calling myself that, because I've had the same thing happen with me. I'm a military spouse, so we move frequently, and I get a different job title even though I'm doing the same thing every time we move. So that really helped to clarify what my role was, at least to myself and to others when I talk about what my role is. So during this presentation, what we're going to go over is the who, what, when, where, why, and how of NPD that can be used to leverage a collaborative partnership with academia to ensure positive health outcomes throughout the community. If you have a comment or a reaction as we go through this presentation, go ahead and feel free to submit that via Mentimeter. And if you have any questions, please submit those via GoToWebinar so that we can answer those at the end of our presentation.
So let's start off with the what. Nursing professional development, that in and of itself is a recognized specialty by the American Nurses Association and has been since 2000. So we're 21 years in, and we actually will be celebrating the publication of our 4th scope and standards later this summer. So be on the lookout for that. With approximately 6,000 members, the Association for Nursing Professional Development advances the specialty of NPD for the ultimate goal, enhancement of healthcare outcomes. So what exactly is NPD, Nursing Professional Development? This is defined as a specialized nursing practice that enhances the professional practice of the interprofessional team and assist staff in their professional growth while promoting change in their knowledge, skills, and abilities.
So now we have a little video for you guys to watch because I love to make videos.
The NPD practice model is a systems model which depicts the cyclical and intertwining patterns of inputs, throughputs, and outputs. This model helps NPD practitioners identify and articulate their roles and responsibilities, as well as visually demonstrates how NPD is intertwined in every aspect of the organization by molding the input and the throughput stage to create positive outputs or outcomes. Through environmental scanning, the most important function of NPD practitioners are able to identify practice gaps, trends, and changes that influence healthcare. There is an opportunity for NPD practitioners to work with academia throughout all aspects of the system model to ensure the mutual goal of positively impacting the health of the community. Our roles consist of learning facilitator, change agent, mentor, leader, champion for scientific inquiry, advocate for NPD specialty, and partner for practice transitions.
So that was a little bit about our roles, and our responsibilities include education, role development, collaborative partnerships, research, evidence-based practice, quality improvement, onboarding and orientation, and competency management, and other duties as assigned. So within each responsibility, we have the opportunity to fulfill our various roles.
So let's take a closer look at one of the inputs of our practice model, who. In this case, who are the NPD team members? The first team member is the NPD practitioner. Now, this is an RN who influences professional role competence and professional growth of learners in a variety of settings. And we'll talk more about settings here momentarily. This is also an RN who supports ongoing professional learning in an interprofessional environment that improves learning for the healthcare team. Next is the professional development associate. This is often a non-nurse on a professional development team and is an individual who contributes to the overall functioning of a continuing education or professional development department in a substantive, measurable way. This role was formalized by ANPD in 2017, and there are numerous resources available to support this competency-based role. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about how the NPD practitioner differentiates from academic faculty and the clinical nurse specialist. As we talk about these roles, please feel free to submit your comments through Mentimeter as to whether or not you agree or have experienced a struggle to delineate these roles. Not only is the role of the NPD practitioner often confused with the clinical nurse specialist, it's also confused with academic nurse educator or the academic clinical nurse educator. Yes, there are some commonalities between these roles. Each, though, belongs to a distinct specialty with their own discrete scope, competencies, and even certifications. So, clinical nurse specialist. This is someone who provides expert consultation to promote evidence-based practices. You have the academic clinical nurse educator, who is an RN who facilitates learning of nursing students in the clinical practice setting as required by academic preparation. And then academic nurse educator is an RN who develops and teaches curriculum and facilitates student learning and success in those academic programs. So hopefully that sets the stage to differentiate between each of those roles. NPD practitioners and professional development associates are extremely flexible and adaptable, and we work in any practice setting within the micro, meso, and macro environments with interprofessional learners. Diving a little bit deeper into what these practice settings could look like, they could include virtual environments, hospitals and acute care settings, which many of you tuning in live are from, long-term care, and also academia. Now we'd like to break apart the throughputs of our practice model. These are our responsibilities, and how specifically what we want to look at and align is how our throughputs build upon the academic experience, starting with education. NPD practitioners identify practice gaps and ensure that the activities that they develop narrow these practice gaps. The focus is on achieving measurable outcomes that positively impact practice. Much like the practice setting, education occurs interprofessionally, where we work collaboratively toward closing practice gaps through an educational design model. NPD practitioners are expected to promote and achieve content integrity through their work to provide continuing education that's vetted through accrediting bodies. NPD ensures a continuation of professional development following the academic experience. So NPD practitioners promote keeping current in healthcare, where we plan, implement, and evaluate activities, but ultimately we serve as a counterpart in the clinical setting to support an individual's ongoing growth, building on what you, for those of you in academia, building on what you have taught them.
Next, we have role development. So NPD practitioners identify and promote strategies to help healthcare professionals grow within their profession. Role development occurs as healthcare professionals navigate through Benner's novice to expert model and can include transition to practice for new grad nurses and advanced practice nurses, or transition to a new specialty within the organization, succession planning to transfer expertise, mentorship, preceptor development, and supporting learners as they become both informal and formal leaders within the organization. NPD can work with academia to coordinate clinical rotations for both undergraduate and graduate nurses and other specialties. They can also act as preceptors and mentors for nurses pursuing advanced degrees. The importance of a continuous feedback loop between clinical and academia cannot be overstated.
Next, we have onboarding and orientation. These are responsibilities that are key to NPD practice, and it's not the only thing that NPD practitioners do. It's important to note that these two terms are in fact different from one another, although you may hear them used interchangeably. But onboarding is the fluid process of hiring, orienting, socializing, and integrating an employee to the organization with a focus on retention and growth. That's what it's all about. Orientation is just one facet of the onboarding process and is comprised of an individualized program to guide that new hire towards job competency. So not only does orientation occur during onboarding, it also occurs when there are changes in roles, responsibilities, and even the practice setting itself. So the NPD practitioner may develop, coordinate, manage, facilitate, conduct, evaluate onboarding and orientation programs for nursing, but also for other healthcare personnel.
Now, depending on an NPD practitioner's academic preparation, they may participate in research, evidence-based practice, and quality improvement initiatives. Many NPD practitioners actually focus on ABP to integrate the best available evidence, educational and clinical expertise, and learner preferences to improve outcomes. NPD practitioners also apply quality improvement to education and professional development initiatives. NPD practitioners work to promote inquiry in patient care settings. Again, depending on educational preparation, NPD practitioners may conduct, evaluate, facilitate, or participate in inquiry, including dissemination of findings. NPD can work with our academic partners to coordinate and develop joint research projects and activities across academic nursing and healthcare systems.
All right, we're making our way around the wheel, and now we're going to talk about competency management. There's so much more to competency management than just nursing skills. As defined by the American Nurses Association, competency is an expected level of performance that integrates knowledge, skills, abilities, and judgment. Competency management is then the dynamic process designed to support ongoing assessment and evaluation of performance. Again, as defined by ANA, competency is measured by using tools that capture objective and subjective data about the individual's knowledge base and actual performance, and then are appropriate for the specific situation and desired outcome. So not only do NPD practitioners accept the responsibility for measuring, documenting, and supporting competency, they're also responsible to address any deficiencies in staff members' competence, which may include competence of teams as well. This responsibility requires the NPD practitioner to have expertise in competency assessment in order to then develop, coordinate, manage, facilitate, conduct, and evaluate competency programs. Academia truly lays the foundation, regardless of the institution or practice setting. Quality and safety is always the focus. NPD practitioners need to have a conversation with their academic partners. You can level set, create realistic expectations that will then provide the best opportunity for us in NPD to anticipate gaps and then to bridge those gaps when they come to the practice setting.
All right, and now we come to, I think we've saved the best for last here, those collaborative partnerships, the whole reason why we're here this evening. So NPD practitioners enter into collaborative relationships both within and outside of their organizations. They may partner with interprofessional continuing education, emergency medical services, public health, to assist in disaster management efforts, as evidenced by our most recent emergency, the pandemic. NPD practitioners may teach, coordinate, or serve as liaisons and advise nurses and other learners concerning education and learning support or learning to support these collaborations. The role of NPD practitioners in collaborative relationships has vast implications. A collaborative partnership provides us with an opportunity to mutually beneficial relationship between academia and NPD practitioners as they work toward the common goal of ensuring positive health outcomes for the community. One of the most critical factors in the nursing shortage is the shortage of nursing faculty. The shortage of nurse educators is a challenge that impacts both the practice and academic settings. Nurses with expertise in teaching and learning are needed in the practice environment to support staff's professional development. However, the lack of nurse educators in nursing programs in the United States directly impacts the availability of nurses at all levels of care for patients. Academia and the practice environment can strive to better understand each other through academic partnerships, which can mitigate some of the faculty shortage through adjunct faculty status, providing preceptors and clinical training sites. In return, NPD would benefit from access to academic libraries and simulation facilities and expertise. So academic partnerships can be leveraged in numerous ways and at different junctures in the NPD practice model. Academia and NPD can provide helpful information back and forth during the input component by communicating changes, trends, and gaps during environmental scanning. The American Association of Colleges of Nursing noted that 13,000 qualified master's applicants were denied admission because of lack of sufficient resources such as faculty preceptors and clinical training sites. During the throughput component, NPD can help coordinate clinical experiences in specialty areas for both new and graduate nurses who would like to specialize and advanced practice nurses who need to secure clinical preceptors. While clinical students participate in quality improvement projects, which can actually help implement change within departments that are often strapped for time and find it difficult to focus on quality improvement. So one example of a thriving academic partnership is in Baltimore, Maryland. The University of Maryland collaborates extensively with the University of Maryland Medical Center. The healthcare organization provides preceptors and subject matter experts. The academic institution supplies the healthcare organization with a steady supply of nurses, nurse leaders, and advanced practice nurses. They work together on quality improvement and research projects, partner on grant projects, partner on statewide leadership programs, and NPD is well represented in both mentees and mentors. They peer review each other's conference and dissemination efforts and support each other's accreditation efforts. And most recently, they partnered this past year for PPE, fit testing, training, and vaccinations. So let's talk about some implications for academic partnerships. NPD practitioners enter in collaborative partnerships with entities. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. So, Jillian, the American Association of College of Nursing 2016 report, Advancing Healthcare Transformation, A New Era of Academic Nurses, made several important observations regarding academic nursing and the role in healthcare setting. One of the issues is some people may see the academic setting and the clinical setting as having two separate agendas. Once a nurse graduates, they're finished with the academic setting, and the clinical setting takes over that nurse's professional development. In truth, to deliver the best professional development throughout a nurse's career path to ensure excellent evidence-based patient care, there must be a continuing symbiotic relationship between both settings.
Yes, so true, Jen. And it's hard to believe this report came out now 5 years ago and how relevant these implications are, maybe even more so today because of the pandemic. So this report called attention to the fact that academic nurses are not fully integrated into the health system. This missed opportunity means that healthcare organizations miss out on the opportunity to have academia lend their expertise to several crucial areas such as health systems governance, leadership, and nursing research programs.
That's true. Academic nurses can help guide research efforts within the healthcare setting and collaborate on workforce planning and training programs and inform future nurse leadership programs. Furthermore, academic nurses are well positioned to advise population health initiatives.
And that could be accomplished through developing relationships between nurses in various positions within practice and education. And these relationships will allow for academia and NPD practitioners to work to diminish current issues with clinical placements. They can partner on student evaluations and clinical process revisions to further strengthen these relationships.
So the AACN also recommends joint appointments or faculty practice programs where faculty works in the clinical environment, often serving as a preceptor for students. Depending on the need, clinical staff and NPD practitioners can reciprocate this as clinical instructors and adjunct faculty to help cover the nursing faculty shortage. Academia and health systems can also work together to grow nurses of the future at the BSN, MSN, DNP, and PhD levels. PhDs are desperately needed to advance research that informs NPD practice, and DNPs are needed to implement evidence-based practices within the clinical setting. Curriculum building and teaching and learning strategies can be shared between practice settings and education.
Academia can also provide leadership in developing links between the continuum of care and work with the clinical setting to take advantage of clinical sites other than acute care facilities that are traditionally used to support clinical hours. But advocacy is needed for scope of practice changes to enable nurses to take on the clinical roles that they are trained to perform, including the NPD practitioner, and support for academic nursing leadership in that clinical care delivery.
So some innovative ideas for academic partnerships can be used to address the nursing faculty shortage and lack sufficient clinical experiences are dedicated education units and clinical immersion programs. These can expose students to the realities of clinical practice earlier in their development, help ensure a smooth transition, enhance the professional development of clinical staff through leadership development, increase staff satisfaction, and lend to the development of NPD practitioners.
So in the creation of these DEUs and clinical immersions, NPD practitioners might be involved in establishing those academic partnerships and the selection, the preparation, and evaluation of the staff clinical instructors. NPD practitioners may also have opportunities to develop as clinical instructors, providing oversight for coach-student dyads. And each of these processes allow the NPD practitioner to provide feedback to aspiring NPD practitioners to ensure succession planning, which is so important for, succession planning for professional growth within the clinical setting itself.
So in a DEU model, one or more units are reserved for clinical opportunities for students. Staff nurses on these units assume responsibility for nursing students' clinical instruction with academic faculty supervision. These staff function like preceptors of nursing students during the final semester, but they instead work with students throughout their academic career. Course content to prepare staff to serve as clinical instructors is similar to preceptor courses with additional student evaluation and privacy regulations.
So whereas clinical immersions offer students an opportunity to work one-on-one with a clinical coach from their first nursing course until the end of their program. Students work their coach's schedule, including nights, weekends, and all of this is to meet each course's required clinical hours. Oversight for up to 10 student to coach dyads is provided by a clinical instructor from the clinical partner's NPD department. So the academic partner prepares both the clinical coach and the clinical instructor.
And Jillian, I actually think that this is going to help us to address that experience complexity gap that we were facing in 2030, but I think that the pandemic is forcing us to face a little bit sooner than that. And these academic partnerships could really play a big role in helping us to plan for that.
Yes. And for the number of you that said, I'm not sure or no, I don't have an academic partnership, there is no time but the present to latch on and make those connections. So one other piece to this puzzle that we want to mention is something for NPD that is so important in our own pursuits in education. So for those of you who either have received your master's and you practice in NPD, or if you teach at the master's level, you may have noticed that some of your students, or maybe even you as a master's student, you decided to go back into the hospital setting versus academia. The focus of graduate nursing programs is on academic education and the role of the academic nurse educator. Although academic nurse educators and NPD practitioners share some theoretical bases, such as the principles of education, adult learning theory, learner engagement strategies, academic education and NPD are two distinct nursing specialties, which we talked about earlier, with separate scopes and standards of practice. Yes, academia does an amazing job at setting nurses up with the foundational knowledge needed for education. However, it can be lacking in conveying the unique knowledge needed for the NPD specialty. So the Association for Nursing Professional Development's Meritorious Academic Partnership Designation Program Toolkit is designed to provide resources to help NPD practitioners raise awareness and advocate for inclusion of NPD-specific content in graduate nursing curricula. So the ANPD MAP designation program recognizes clinical and academic partners who collaborate to incorporate NPD content into graduate curricula. The MAP program standards delineate elements of a robust NPD curriculum. This designation is available to graduate academic programs and their clinical partners who meet the established criteria in alignment with the nursing professional development scope and standards. We do have a QR code directly to the MAP designation webpage and the associated toolkit at the end of this presentation, but also in the handout that you have available, there is a QR code that will take you to that toolkit as well. We also recommend an article published by Harper et al. In the Journal for Nurses in Professional Development titled Meritorious Academic Partnership Designation, Recognizing Nursing Professional Development in Graduate Curricula. And this was published in 2019.
So thanks for that, Jill. And a comment actually popped up while you were speaking that said, wow, I hadn't heard about that in grad school. And I think a majority of us NPD practitioners did not. I did not even realize that we had our own scope and standards probably until I was about 4 years into my being an NPD practitioner. And I'm terrified to think about the poor people that I actually were my learners during that 4 years, because I wasn't engaging them the way they needed to be engaged within the clinical setting, because I was so focused on what I had learned on how to teach in the academic setting. And I had also been a clinical instructor and adjunct faculty, and I found that my master's program prepared me very well for that. So I think it's just adding on the additional things for our specialty so that people can truly understand those differences in the clinical setting and the kinds of learners that we have in that setting. So next, I'm going to talk about demonstrating the value of academic partnerships. And I love nothing more than demonstrating the value of our specialty. Unfortunately, a lot of NPD practitioners don't know how to quantify what we do because we contribute to outcomes. It's very hard for us to show that we've directly impacted. So, and we lack the business acumen, because when we're in nursing school, they don't teach us business acumen. It's stuff you have to learn along the way, and that may only happen if you go into leadership or management. So we can be at a large disadvantage. So it pays to educate ourselves. So it has been found that 43% of newly licensed nurses who work in hospitals leave their jobs after 3 years. Another 33.5% resign just after 2, and 17.5% work for only 1 year. The NPD practitioner can use their leadership role within the organization to advocate for the value of academic partnerships by demonstrating the role the relationship plays in ensuring the smooth transition to practice for the new grad nurse, thus potentially decreasing turnover. The NPD practitioner must use business acumen to convey the costs associated with and costs saved through academic partnerships. Senior leadership is often unsavvy to NPD practitioners' contributions to the organization because, again, we fail to quantify our work. Due to this, Opperman, 2016, noted that NPD practitioners are often the first to be called when a problem exists and among the first to have funding restricted when budgets are tight. However, anyone who is immersed in education understands that academia and NPD can strengthen the organization through their staff's professional development. Staff who are confident in their knowledge and skills are more apt to stay within their organization. Academic partnerships can positively impact retention and turnover rates. As a matter of fact, research data indicates that each percentage point reduction in turnover rate results in an organizational savings of $328,000. Therefore, the NPD practitioner must demonstrate return on investment for academic partnerships. By calculating return on investment, NPD practitioners are better equipped to answer questions such as, what purpose does this academic partnership serve? And why should we spend time and money establishing and maintaining these relationships? By monetizing academic partnerships' effects on retention, the NPD practitioner can clearly illustrate through data-driven metrics the value of these relationships to senior management. The NPD practitioner communicates this through cost analysis, benefit cost ratio, cost effectiveness, and the return on investment for programs linked explicitly to academic partnerships, such as those dedicated education units that we talked about and clinical immersion programs, especially because these have been shown to ensure that smoother transition to practice and increase staff satisfaction. Academic partners can work with NPD practitioners to identify the benefits of a program and indicate the value of that program in dollars. Opperman et al.'s Measuring Return on Investment Professional Development Activities, Implications for Practice is an excellent resource for NPD practitioners who are interested in quantifying the value of their specialty and their partnerships. I highly recommend that you look that up in JNPD. It is truly, truly helpful in demonstrating the value of our specialty to our organizations, because we know how valuable we are. We just need to be able to let other people know how valuable we are. Finally, we have some resources. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jillian.
I was just going to say it's so powerful. The information and the data behind what you just shared is incredibly powerful. I've heard this. I know this.
When I was talking about it, I was like,
goosebumps.
I know that the whole other presentation, I'm like, and then I get to money, and I just went crazy. So, again, the value of our specialty. So some of our resources that we have at AMPD that are, well, the first one is free to our members and to anybody who is on Spotify, is the NPD Forecast. And that is hosted once a month by Jillian and myself. And what we do is, it's a podcast about environmental scanning, but we also talk through our roles as NPD practitioners. And our most recent one was about looking outside of our industry for innovative solutions, so outside of the healthcare industry. And we had an aviator, a public affairs officer, 2 marketing experts, and a theater person talk to us about solutions that we can implement within our specialty to increase our value. So you can see the QR code for that if you're interested in checking out our podcast. And next is our Frontline Nurse Leader course, which is a great course to help your charge nurses to really take ownership of that role within the organization and help them to navigate that. And finally is that QR code for the MAP designation program. And please contact Mary Harper. It actually facilitates that program for AMPD. So please feel free to contact her with any questions you may have about it at mharper@ampd.org. All right. Well, that's it. Does anybody have any questions for Jillian and myself?
To ask your questions, you can use the GoToWebinar questions feature. Just click that and type in your question in the box and then click the submit button. I do have a question here ready for you guys. The person is saying, I'm new to a role in professional development. What resources do you recommend to guide enhancements to competency management and development?
First off, congratulations for joining what I think is one of the best specialties. It's so fulfilling. But Jillian is our competency management expert, so I'm going to go ahead and let her speak to that.
Oh, goodness. So yes, I echo Jenn's congratulations to you, and kudos for seeking out resources. Competency management is something that it's so dependent upon your organization as far as how that's traditionally managed. And you can be creative and innovative with your process to manage competencies. As far as core resources, of course, our scope and standards of practice, our core curriculum, that really is the expansion of our scope and standards to give you content and resources that you are probably hungry for. There are several pieces and parts within those, but I'll tell you what, the most inspiration and innovative ideas that I've really capitalized on have occurred through convention presentations or poster presentations from others that are revamping their competency management programs. So you may have heard of Donna Wright. That's a very popular competency management guru that many facilities leverage that process to really break it down to something that's more meaningful, tangible, and just frankly easier to manage, because an organization can make competency management so incredibly complex when it doesn't have to be. So I'd be curious if you have specific questions or want to have further conversation about this, I'd encourage you to reach out to either Jenn or myself, and we do have our email addresses available on the handout for you, and then also at the end of this presentation we have our email addresses available too.
And Jillian, I think a good piece of advice to go along with that, especially I wish someone had told me this early on, is don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. If someone says we have to do a competency on this because we've done it every single year for the last, since the Stone Age, challenge that. Say, show me where it says we have to do this every year, because that gets stuck in people's mind just because they've always been doing that. It has to be done. So challenge that, know what your resources are, know what your policies say, know what the regulations inform, and then you come armed to the table to choose competencies that really matter to the areas that you're catering to.
Yep.
All right, great. We have another question. I recently completed an MSN in nursing education and have considered a career in NPD. Right now, I lack teaching experience. What recommendations do you have for starting a career in NPD?
Shadow an NPD person at your hospital. Ask them if you can shadow them. It gives you a really good idea of the day-to-day, because a lot of people who aren't intimately involved in our specialty, what they see are the people who turn on the CPR dummies and tell you to pump on some chests, and the people who say, welcome to our organization. But they don't see all of the other many amazing things that we do. And hanging out with your NPD specialists or the education department will really help to give you a feel for that, and they can give you some really good advice. Like I said, I didn't know until 4 years in what I was doing. So if you can find somebody past that point, it'll save you a bunch of heartache, and they'll give you all the good expert advice that you need. But also, if you go into NPD, I'm going to tell you, get that scope and standards. It is the NPD Bible. Carry it around with you. I love to show that model to people who are like, I need you to do this. And I'm like, but that's not in my throughputs. That's not my roles and responsibilities. These are the things I can do for you and do well. This is my expertise. And they ask you to do things outside of that because we fail to communicate what our expertise is. I hope that helped. We have Natalie involved with the NPD organization. Definitely. ANPD is a great organization. That's actually where my first ANPD conference was 4 years later, and that's how I realized, oh, I have competencies that go along with my specialty.
And I would, if teaching is, I think the question, and Megan, please feel free to repeat this portion of her comment and question, his or her comment or question. The how to get teaching experience, is that right?
Yes, she's saying that right now she lacks teaching experience, and if you had any recommendations for starting a career in NPD.
Yeah, so if you're eager to get teaching experience, I would encourage you to put yourself out there either within your existing practice setting, find something that you can identify a gap and create strategies to close that. You tap into your adult learning theories, tap into learner engagement strategies, just to give you a comfort level with teaching, if that's something specifically that you've identified that you yourself have a gap for.
With huddles, right? Start with teaching
in the community.
Those are people you know in a small group, so they're not going to be so judgmental. You can start with teaching at huddles, because teaching is really about knowing what your content, but also being engaging. And you learn to be engaging when you start doing this a lot and you're not so nervous about it so much. So getting to teach at huddles is a great place, a safe place to start. Mm-hmm. And ask for feedback, like, how was that? What could I have done better?
Yep. And I saw a comment come through, reach out within your community. If you are interested in teaching basic life support, that's always, I feel like organizations are always looking for BLS instructors. So that's really a local option that you probably have readily available to you too. What other questions, Megan?
So we have someone who is a student in MSN education and on the shared governance committee at the hospital where they work. I really feel we need a mentorship program. How would I go about it?
That's interesting. It's interesting because mentorship, you need to find people who are willing to mentor. People typically pick the people they want to mentor them, because that's a very different relationship than preceptorship where you assign. But I think that finding those people who are interested in mentoring is where you start, and they have similar interests. That's very important for them to be able to guide the people that they are mentoring. I think that would be your first step. I know if you could email me, you have my email at the bottom. I actually know someone who started a mentorship program at Aurora, and I would love to put you in contact with her. So if you take down my email and you email me, I will gladly share that information with you. And then she can give you a step-by-step.
All right, and we have another question. I decided to advance my career and currently in my last year of FNP school. What leadership advice do you have as I approach graduation?
Your FNP?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless that's a typo and it's supposed to be DNP, or...
So FNP, you will take a type of leadership role as a practitioner. I am an FNP, but your first year will be spent just learning, because it's so different than nursing, becoming a practitioner. Your DNP, you gotta, I saw this great quote the other day: if you don't have a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. So you really have to find places to interject yourself and start at your committees, volunteer for committees. That's where you really start to find a voice, and then people start to hear your opinions and start to respect them, and then they start saying things like, Anna Smith is really great at this, this, and this, and she has these great ideas. So I would get involved there at the committee level first, and that's a really good place to start in those leadership roles.
All right, and one question I have here is, when you were discussing the stats that sounded pretty scary at first about turnover, how do those compare to other roles, such as in teaching? They tend to have a high turnover, sales, marketing, things like that.
I honestly cannot speak to other roles mainly because my interest is what we can do for decreasing turnover for healthcare professionals. However, I think you bring up a very good point. If you are able to actually take those numbers and compare it to other service industries or whatnot and show that we have a higher turnover rate, that's really indicative that there is a problem. So I am actually going to do a little bit of research on that. So thank you for that question, because that is a really good way to present that information.
I agree. That's a great perspective that we could use and leverage to advocate for resources and to advocate for all the things that we've talked about within this presentation in the context of academic partnerships too. But it is startling to see and hear those numbers and how the pandemic is exacerbating that. We have an experience complexity gap on our hands. We have burnout, compassion fatigue that is, funneling nurses to make the decision to leave the profession that they once so loved because of a lack of resources. So, this is compounding and compounding, and ultimately in NPD, I hope we have more than a folding chair at the table, Jen, because we really have an opportunity to make an incredible difference, for the long term, and to really impact turnover and retention in a way that we've never had to experience.
Right. And I think we have a seat at the table if we're able to speak the language of the people at the table, which is often with leadership, business acumen. And that's why I say, if they won't let you come to the table, you elbow your way in, because what you have to say is important and what you do matters.
All
I'm
right.
curious.
Well, go
I'm
ahead.
so sorry, Megan. I was going to ask for the individuals who, I think it was our first polling question. We asked what your practice setting was, and there were a good number of you that said other. If those individuals are still on, I'd be curious if you submit a little comment bubble through Mentimeter to tell us what type of practice setting you're in, being other, from academia, hospital, acute care, association, and we had one other. I'll give you a moment if those folks are still on. That's more for my curiosity to see where other folks are practicing.
We have one who's a case manager.
Okay.
Hospital corporate care, last semester MSN leadership. Very awesome.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. That was eating away at the back of my mind. Curious where you
corrections present.
Corrections.
We also have a PMHNP and a executive director of a consulting service and a professor.
Great.
PDN, finishing DNP, and focus on competency and preceptor.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for entertaining my curiosity there.
Any other questions, Megan?
I think that is all we have, but thank you to both Jillian and Jennifer for their presentation today and all of this wonderful information. Sigma is grateful that you took the time to share with this audience, and we look forward to hearing more from both of you in the future. And to everyone that attended, thank you, and we hope you enjoyed this webinar. Be sure to check out Sigma's upcoming webinars, podcasts, and resources to support you and your colleagues at sigmanursing.org. Also, previously recorded webinars and podcasts are freely available on the Sigma repository. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful day.
Take care.
Thank you.